1,500 that were pardoned. This is probably one of the most un-American things 47 could have done. You just spit in the face of those law enforcement officers who died. You just spit in their family faces.
And it's the spitting in the face part where we recognize that maybe this just isn't about the price of eggs, but it
That
is
haven't
about
gone down, by the way. I'm still looking for
right.
eggs. And hey, it's been 2 days and you've done everything else. I
Right.
see the price of eggs and the price of gas hasn't gone down.
He is a son of Birmingham. He is the mayor of Birmingham. And after 4 years in Atlanta earning his degree from Morehouse College, he has lived in Birmingham ever since. He's worked at City Hall and for the Jefferson County Committee on Economic Opportunity. He attended Cumberland School of Law at Samford University. And after obtaining his law degree, accepted a job in the city of Birmingham Law Department. He ran for mayor in 2016 with endorsements from President Joe Biden, Senators Bernie Sanders, and Cory Booker. My guest today, who is the author of Son of Birmingham, Randall Woodfin, is the current mayor who won that seat in an upset victory in 2017 and earned a featured speaking role at the 2020 Democratic National Convention. He is not just a rising star, but a competent, capable leader leading Birmingham, Alabama into the 21st century. So I'm looking forward to it, and I hope you will join me for my conversation with the mayor of Birmingham, Randall Woodfin, coming up on the Michael Steele podcast right after this. Hey, folks, welcome to the Michael Steele podcast. Well, we survived the inauguration, I think. No, baby, this ish is getting, we'll get into it. But welcome. I hope everyone had a wonderful MLK Day this past week as we also inaugurated a new president. And so at moments like this, it's always kind of good to get on the ground and hear and see what's happening in the lives of real folks and with leaders who have to deal with real life issues all the time. So I'm really pleased to welcome to the conversation Mayor Randall Woodfin from the great city of Birmingham, Alabama. Welcome, Mayor.
Hey, thank you so much. I'm grateful for the opportunity to be on your podcast. And you have an amazing following, and you are a true voice of balance, reason. You see all sides and perspectives. So glad to be on the show because you have a fresh perspective. So I appreciate that.
No, I appreciate you, man. I know you've got a lot on your plate as you're balancing governing a very diverse, growing community in Birmingham. The South is changing. New leadership like yourself understands that. But we also now are living in an age where there are those who want to regress and take our communities to places that are much darker. I just before we get into some of the meat of the conversation and certainly getting into your memoir, Son of Birmingham, which is out now, and really, really fascinating story. What's your assessment of what you're seeing and hearing as a mayor, who not only has to make sure the trash gets picked up and the stoplights work, but also has to be concerned about the health of your community, the education of its citizens, the security of that community when we see, for example, in our nation's capital, white nationalist racists like the Proud Boys being released from prison back on the streets with the support of the President of the United States. How do you, sitting in Birmingham, look at Washington and the rest of the country and go, what the hell y'all doing?
I'm struggling with that. January 6, 2021, I have a fresh collection of my memories where I was. I was laying in the bed because I was having trouble breathing because I was admitted because of COVID pneumonia.
Mm.
And so I remember literally being in the hospital, nowhere to go, couldn't have visitations. Nurses barely came in the room, being isolated. And the only thing I had were my thoughts and a very small TV. But on this very small TV what I was witnessing, um, in shock and grief of just not the carnage, not just the carnage and destruction of the sacred place we call our capital, Capitol Hill. That is the space, um, for our legislative leadership. But what I saw done to the men and women serving on the front line as law enforcement, they were berated, they were kicked, they were punched, they were stepped on, they were mauled. A lot of them died. I got the separation, Michael, from the 1,500 that were pardoned, but to commute the ones that were actually sentenced, who caused the most carnage, including up to death. I don't care what anybody says. I am struggling processing that because I can get beyond the hypocrisy of you say you believe in the men and women of blue, and you back law enforcement, but then you go and do something like this.
Mhm.
And if you've ever had a loved one taken from you, my thoughts are thinking about the family members who've lost a loved one, or the colleagues of theirs who's still living but don't have their colleague anymore. I'm thinking about the post-traumatic stress of those officers who survived. This is a smack in their face. Screw my thoughts. Whatever I think
Mhm.
about it doesn't matter. Think about those other law enforcement officers who lost a colleague. Think about those family members who lost a loved one because of this heinous act on January 6th. It's unconscionable.
It is on so many levels, and I know DC police officer, former DC police officer Michael Fanone. I know the you know some of the other Capitol Hill police officers who were directly impacted by this, and when you hear their stories and you juxtapose their stories up against the visual, right? Because it's one thing to see something, right, and you're like, oh my god, but then to have the person that you're looking at tell you the story real time about what they were experiencing and the after effect of that. I really do appreciate the way you frame it, because it's no longer about you. It's about all these men and women who are on the front line to protect us and defend us against enemies, foreign and domestic. For
Domestic.
you numb nuts out there who don't understand what this is about. Yes, there is such a thing as domestic terrorism. The KKK, the Proud Boys, all these other organizations
Right.
fit into that box. Let's call the thing what it is. And when you look at the men and women who are there to protect us from that, it does really draw you closer to the question of to answer the question, well, just who the hell are we?
Right.
And what kind of leaders do we have leading us in these times that they actually countenance something like that,
What I
like a
can
Donald Trump?
what I can say is this is probably one of the most un-American things 47 could have done.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know if you've heard some of the responses from some of the family members, but I think one of the officers, who died, brother is law enforcement. I could be wrong,
Mm-hmm.
but he's made a public statement, and his statement is just on point. You just spit in the face of those law enforcement officers who died. You just spit in their family faces. You just spit in their colleagues' faces, who
Mm-hmm.
some of them literally these many years later either retired after that or still dealing with that emotional trauma, or some of them physical trauma. You just spit in all of their faces.
And it's the spitting in the face part that I think at this time offers up a different voice and voices to help us sort of, you know, have that moment where we kind of snap out of the haze, where we recognize that maybe this just isn't about eggs, the price of eggs and the price of gas, but it
That
is
haven't
about
gone down, by the way. I'm still looking for
right.
eggs. And hey, it's been 2 days and you've done everything else. I
Right.
see the price of eggs and the price of gas hasn't gone down.
Bravo, my friend. Absolutely. Point well made and taken. And we'll make sure to level that point up, because it's true. We're 2 days into this thing and price of eggs is still high. Gas is still high. even though it was cheaper than it was a year ago. But that was Biden, so it's high.
Right.
How does all of this, and I know, going back to how you began the conversation, lying in a hospital bed by yourself with COVID, how does that animate and inform your life story in that moment that leads you to make the steps that you've made, take the steps that you've taken in terms of your public leadership, running for office, getting elected, and now governing? Put all that together for us if you can. I know you can, but
Yeah, I
if you
mean,
will.
the threat here is servant leadership. I think in 2025, we're living in a time where we're starving for servant leadership,
Yes.
where those in position, those in power, those responsible for leading people, it should not be transactional. We should be putting people first. We should be helping people, solving their issues, addressing their concerns. The way I see it is that we just left an election season where the number one concern was about how can I take care of my family?
Mm-hmm.
How can I pay for the price of gas and putting food on my table and taking care of my children? That's putting people first. What we've seen over the last 48 hours is the opposite of putting people first. And so I believe this country at all levels, I don't care if it's federal, state, or local, are starving for and deserve servant leadership. And the threat for me in everything you mentioned is I come from a school of I was taught if I am going to be in a position of power and or leadership, serve people, put people first, make people the priority, help them, provide for them, etc. Doesn't matter what their affiliation is, their social economic status is, their zip code is, help people. And I think in the time we're in, this is a good time for whether it's corporate America, whether it's those who are down on their luck, whether it is people looking for a different style of leadership,
Right.
turn towards your local governments because local government is where you're going to find innovation, creativity, and the ability to actually help people and solve problems.
It's
It may be a while before we get that type of help from 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. So
yeah.
it's time to look more local to solve issues that affect everyday Americans.
So, and I asked the question the way I did because just for folks to understand that when you were lying in that hospital bed, you were the mayor of Birmingham.
Correct.
You weren't lying there as, a private citizen or just, Randall from around the block.
Correct.
You were lying there as the mayor, isolated from your people, from the people that you in that moment should be. And I know you felt this way when you read the book. You get that strong sense, that you needed to be out on the streets, but here you were. Those are moments where you really begin to fully appreciate what your calling is, what your mission is as a servant leader. Because
Correct.
in that moment, you're not thinking about yourself. You're thinking about the myriads of people who are similarly situated right now in that very same hospital, sick, dying, in some cases dead, families grieving. And here you are, limited in your capacity to serve them and help them and bring resources that they need.
I
What
struggled.
was that like for you
It
as
was a
the mayor?
struggle. It was a struggle twofold. It was a struggle because it was personal and and because of the profession I'm in serving. Personal, 5 days before at this exact same hospital, my great grandmother, Elnora Sullivan, actually passed away.
Ugh.
And so she was admitted into the same hospital that I ended up being admitted into, Princeton Hospital in Southwest Birmingham. And she never came home. And
Mm.
so by the time I got there, she had already transitioned. And literally the day before, because I'm trying to remember the exact day of her funeral, I wasn't able to attend her funeral because I was laying in that same hospital bed.
Right.
So now I'm seeing that on TV. In another instance, I'm sick. And in another instance, I can't be there to console and be with my family because I got COVID pneumonia, and my family's grieving because the matriarch of our family passed. Oh man, I struggle hard. That's just the bottom line truth, man.
Yeah.
And Birmingham, Alabama is a majority black city. And so people talk about the coronavirus, they don't know its impact for real. So many people, unfortunately, in my city and community had underlying health conditions. And so there was a legit concern and fear that if COVID got rampant in our city, a lot of people would be in a position to not necessarily mend the curve and get healthier or rebound from coronavirus faster because of so many underlying health conditions such as diabetes and
Right.
heart disease, et cetera, respiratory issues. My mother was one of those people. I couldn't see my mother. My sisters and I chose to not enter our mother's home from March 2020 until April 2021. And if we
That was
wanted to
about
see,
the same with my mom and dad. My sister and I made the same decision.
I mean, that's who doesn't hug their mother, right?
Yeah.
And so all those personal decisions, all those personal, I guess, things that impacted me made me feel really bad for other families living the same experience or worse. And so I had the actual empathy, not just sympathy for those other families, but I could empathize with them because we were going through the same thing.
It's a powerful part of the story, and in one sense you just touched on it a little bit. You open up the book in the prologue with these words: "Tell me the truth. When you hear the words Birmingham and Alabama, what are the first things that jump to mind?" And I guarantee you, what jumps to mind are not what you just described: the humanity of the people, the stories, the struggles, the everydayness of Birmingham.
Right.
You know, it has a notorious history for sure in the civil rights era and in the Jim Crow era. But out of those ashes have been born a leader such as yourself.
Yes, sir.
And that is the profoundness of this memoir. Talk to us about that, writing the story and sharing with us this idea of being the son of Birmingham, now serving as its mayor in a time of growth and prosperity, but also a time of difficulty and pain. That's been an interesting story.
Well, look, the book Son of Birmingham is now officially out, released January 21st. I want to encourage your listeners to check it out, sonofbirmingham.com, their local bookstore, online, wherever they purchase books. Definitely support this book. And I want to give a shout out to Edward Bowser, who co wrote it with me. With
Mhm.
that said, I want to get into your question. The reason I posed that question, what do you think about Birmingham? And why I started the book that way is because Son of Birmingham as a book is a literal love letter to the city that raised me. It is a love letter to my hometown, but it's also a story for the world to know that Birmingham, Alabama did not stop in 1963. That when they open their history books at whatever elementary, middle, high school they live in, where whatever city they live in, that's not Birmingham, I'm reminding them, I am telling them, I am showing them through story, art form, that Birmingham, Alabama in today's time is a progressive, moving city,
Mhm.
that we are a welcoming city, that is a city made up of multiple generations, and that we have lived and learned from our lessons. And this is us now in today's time. With that said, the title makes sense because I am able to serve the city, lead the city, and have the title of mayor because of the shoulders I stand on. I stand on the shoulders of Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth, who invited Dr. King to Birmingham. I stand on the shoulders of Richard Arrington, the first black mayor of Birmingham, Alabama in
Mhm.
1979. And I stand on so many of the foot soldiers who literally were hosed and bitten by dogs, children who led the movement, not adults, but actual teenagers and children who sacrificed themselves to spark the nation to change. I have a role and responsibility. but I never forget that I am a student first, a listener more, and a son of all of these people who represent the city of Birmingham. And they passed the baton to me to make the city better for all the residents of the city. And so I take that seriously every day. I take it with a commitment and I take it with a sense of urgency to improve the quality of life. You mentioned those challenges and the times we live in. The unfortunate part about it is that these many years later, there's still concentrated poverty. There's high gun violence. And so we've gone from the Jim Crow era of lynchings to segregation and bombings to now with America's gun culture issue, a significant amount of homicides due to gun violence. This is our current day struggle,
Mm-hmm.
and we have to fight to keep people safe, make people safe, allowing people to feel safe on their front porches, children to walk to school, etc. But I wear that badge because my own family's been affected by gun violence. So again, I know how the victims, the family members who survived, who lost a loved one, feel when I look into my own mother's eyes. We got work to do, but there's so many positive things that have happened, way more positive things that have happened than negative as it relates to improving quality of life, offering children opportunities, economic employment, identity, all those things, making this city better to improve quality of life for citizens. That's the mission every single day.
You actually really set that up nicely in the book in the way that you write about, quote, our narrative is almost always a story about victims, never a story about victory. How does Birmingham's legacy shift from one of violence, one of hatred of Black people, just putting it straight up, to one of victory?
Well, that's easy. I think many times, there were other cities in the South. King came to Albany, Georgia, and the sheriff and the local law enforcement didn't take the bait as it related to the intentional design protests and the reaction he needed from that law enforcement. We know what happened in Selma. We know what happened in Montgomery.
Mm-hmm.
What made Birmingham different was two things. One, we reckon our differences on the world stage to see. Two, it was actual scores, hundreds of, if not thousands, of children that kept coming out of the church, kept leading on the front lines of being attacked. It wasn't just adults. These foot soldiers were children, and when they got in the movement and got on the front line, it totally changed everything in the psyche of Americans. When you think about Birmingham, not just
Mm-hmm.
the unfortunate bombing of 16th Street Baptist Church, but you think about the children who were bitten by dogs, the children that were holes, the teenagers who walked out of school, the ones who, even when the city jail filled up, they sent them to the county jail. And even when the county jail filled up, they sent them to a place called the Fairgrounds. That's how many children participated in the movement. When you have your youngest generation actively putting their bodies on the front line, on the world stage, you have a blueprint for how you make change in today's time for anything that is immoral, anything that doesn't work for Americans. Birmingham literally created a blueprint for how you organize, for how you fight injustice, and for how you make sacrifices and come out on the side of victory.
You found your leadership in a very interesting place. When you read the book, folks, you'll get the full scope of it when you talk about, at the end of the day, when you stop and thought about it, that bagging groceries was a whole lot like running a city.
Yes, I meant it. I meant that when I said it.
I really enjoyed that. I was like, you know what? Yeah, I can see that. Talk a little bit about that, because I want to then move from that to, I love this chapter where you talk about life is like a musical, and as someone who is always into the musical elements of life, I want to get into that piece too, because I found those to be very interesting stories, if you will. So let's start with this whole bagging a bag of groceries is a lot like running a city.
Well, look, I got my first job at age 15 years old. The boss who hired me, his name was Dale Smith. I'll never forget him because I begged him to give me an opportunity. And it was bagging groceries at a local grocery store called Western Supermarket. And he trained me on how to be a bagger. But it was all the other life skills that I developed that came with that. The biggest one and the one I still lead with today as mayor of the city of Birmingham, is customer service. Always take care of your customer. Always keep your customer first. Anticipate their needs, anticipate their wants, anticipate their desires. A matter of just not when they put their food on the conveyor belt and it comes down, but go up to them and take it out yourself. Put it in an order they can appreciate when they get home and have to unbag those same groceries. Whatever their issues are, which trust me, when you're a bag boy, you get to know your customers. You find out all these things that's going on in a person's life because it's that intimate, especially if you're not just bagging, but walking them to their car.
Right.
All of a sudden, I'm developing literal relationships with my customers over a few years. The point I'm making is anything I needed to do to make sure that their experience was the best, anything I needed to do to make sure that they were taken care of, that they were appreciated for being a customer of Western Supermarket, I went well beyond the call of duty. The point of that in mayor is if it's a pothole, if it's a service, if it's an issue, if it's a concern, if it's a want, if it's a need, it's a desire, I am responsible for being responsive to the residents I serve needs and making sure whatever their issue is, I always put them first.
You bag it the right way.
Oh man, let me tell you, you got to. You
'Cause
got to.
dude, I can tell you, before our grocery stores got to the point where they said, "Nah, you bag your own groceries." That tells you something about customer service right there.
Right?
You're right, man. You bag it wrong. You get home, man. You cussing because
Cursing, you can't
you make
find something,
about the bag break.
your eggs are cracked. Why is milk in the same bag with Clorox? I mean, it's all type of stuff, man. No, like I'm serious. And so what I tell I have 3,000 city employees. So think about public works, think about your police department, think about your fire department, think about your 911 and your 311.
Right.
We serve people. We have to take care of people. It goes well beyond the mayor's office. The majority of people that call your city hall, they have a problem. They're not calling to say thank you for what you did. Some do, but the majority are calling to say, hey, this is a problem. Well, I can't turn their problem into, oh, it's me. I don't want to do it. It's
Right.
I'm sorry you're going through this. Let's investigate it. We'll be sure to follow up. And let's move with this sense of urgency to address the citizens' problems we serve. It's service. Bagging groceries is a service. Being mayor is you're serving people.
Yeah. So how is life then like a musical?
Oh man, that's easy. Michael, I believe life is definitely like a musical for all of human beings. Now we all have our own soundtrack.
Right.
OutKast is my soundtrack, but I don't believe I'm alone in that. I believe a lot of Americans in various generations, in various socioeconomic statuses, race, gender, whatever it is, we all love OutKast. We're talking Grammy Award winning artists.
Right.
Each chapter is literally a song from one of their albums. And the point I'm making is OutKast as artists changed the game. At the exact same time, they never changed themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They were always their authentic self, but they weren't afraid to lean into their creativity, push the needle, if you would, in music, and make the industry follow them instead of them following where the industry was going.
Mm-hmm.
They never conformed. That made them leaders. And when I say life is like a musical, I believe we all have our own soundtrack and we should follow it. We shouldn't conform to another person's soundtrack.
Right.
We have our own individual beat, our own individual drum, and we need to move at its pace. And we don't need to be afraid to lead. We don't have to be conformists. We can be our authentic self and
Yep.
still make change.
Now I
That's what
got
I
you on
mean
that.
by it.
My soundtrack is anything house. Give me some good house music. I'm like, okay, we there. I'm and that and go because I'm
Oh
from
yeah,
DC.
DC.
So
Yeah. You tell DC to bring back the culture. We won't go back.
We want go back. I'm telling you, baby. It is one of those beats that when you hear it, I don't care. I don't care if you're in a wheelchair or if you're standing there in the corner of the room. You will move.
You
You
will. I
gonna
mean, the
move.
most known go-go beat that I'm aware of that any American should know is doing the butt.
Doing the butt. Doing the butt.
That's full go-go if you pay attention and listen to the sound of the music.
And then you get to do the butt. I'm having a lot of fun with my buddy Randall Woodfin, who is the mayor of Birmingham, Alabama. I got a little bit more I want to get into with the mayor. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to get a little bit more into his new memoir, Son of Birmingham. It's out now. Pick up a copy, folks. You know I don't steer you wrong on the books that the authors and their books that we bring to the podcast. We vet because we want to bring only the best, and we want you to read smart, enlightened thoughts, and this mayor has a few. So we're going to get back with the mayor right after this. Welcome back, everybody, to the Michael Steele podcast. We are having a lot of fun. During the break, I was doing the butt. Those of you just tuning in, you're going to have to listen to the whole podcast to understand what that was about. So I'm just telling you, that's what you got to do. We're having a good time with Randall Woodfin, who is the mayor of Birmingham, Alabama. He is, regardless of party, one of the bright lights in American municipal leadership. I would say even more broadly, leadership for the future of the country. And it's just a real great opportunity to have him come on and talk about his new book, his memoir, A Son of Birmingham. So you've got a lot of various pieces that you've got to put together in any given day. You are trying to manage your city, but also manage the externalities that could impact your city. People don't really appreciate, Mayor, that at the end of the day, you are the last rung, but you're also the first rung. You're the last rung when everything comes rolling downhill from the federal level to the state, to the county, to you. But then you're the first rung for the people. Because when the you know what hits the fan, who they gonna call? They're not calling the governor. They're not calling the senator.
Governor.
They calling you before they call the governor. Yes. They calling you and cussing you out for something you had no control over.
Right.
That's the price of leadership. And you talk a lot about that leadership in your memoir. One of the things I thought was interesting because of some of the work that I've done in the past, both as lieutenant governor and in the private sector, you talk about more than ever, we need more HBCUs. Tell us why, because that's one of those aspects, education, that where the rubber meets the road for the mayor and the city council, working with the school board, because you're dealing with kindergartners, you're dealing with high schoolers, you're dealing with the universities that are located in your municipalities.
Correct.
Talk to us about this need for HBCUs, why they're important, and what do you think Donald Trump's executive order on Monday eliminating diversity, inclusion, equity, and inclusion efforts and programs at the federal level across the country, how that may impact what you're doing with your HBCUs and schools in your city?
Well, look, historically, Black colleges and universities are as relevant today as they were in 1867.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not going to say, I dare say more. I don't mean that. They were extremely important in 1867. But I believe what's happened at the university and college level in the last 10 years is why it's extremely important today. We are talking about a significant amount of Black boys and girls becoming teenagers and then young adults who would be first generation college university students. And but for the HBCU experience, which is a holistic experience well beyond the academia part of just being educated, we need places where these young Black men, these young Black women feel safe, are nurtured, enriched, invested in the whole person, character building, leadership, fun, Of course, they're going to get the academic and
Mhm.
academia part of this, but the setting and the place matters. And as I understand it from my own experience, that is the reason I can say I'm the mayor today. HBCUs are a safe place. They are a needed place. You can literally be gainfully educated as well as become a full round person of knowing yourself and going from a boy to a man, from a girl to a grown woman, and
Mhm.
understanding the plight of African Americans and Black people, and then going home and making things better, or going out into wherever in the world and making your mark and impact on life because of your HBCU experience.
How do But how does that translate on a day in and day out basis when you're looking at the challenges of education funding and the lack of funding and support for HBCUs? And I would even say everyone focuses on the federal level, but really that challenge is most profound at the state level. Does Alabama support HBCUs in the state?
Well, let's just say Alabama State and Alabama A&M, which are two HBCU state public universities, do not receive the same academic financial formula that the Alabamas and the Auburns of the world do. That's a fact, and they should, period, for research dollars purposes and for everything else, for buildings and operations, et cetera. They should, period. For professors and tenure, they should, but they don't. That's one. Here's two. I always start with putting our mask on first. And as an HBCU graduate, I don't care if it's $1 or $18.67 or $18.81 or $100. It doesn't matter the price. If you are a graduate of any HBCU, you should be giving monthly or yearly to your HBCU,
Yeah.
because when that president and or those board of trustees can go to corporate America, private sector, donors, et cetera,
First
they
question
should
I get
be
asked.
they should be able to say, hey, we have a minimum of 50%.
Yep.
But if they're able to say we got a minimum of 90% investment from our graduates, they know that the graduates, the generation that is no longer there, are literally passing their dollars, giving their dollars, investing their dollars in the next generation, in their private sector. Dear corporate America, dear donors, we need you to be a part of this experience for the next generation.
Mayor, I cannot emphasize enough how important what you just said is. It has been one of the most profoundly disappointing aspects of my engagement with HBCUs, not just here in my own state, which was a specific battle that I had to deal with, to be quite honest, with some Black legislators, believe it or not, who were graduates of HBCUs. Um, but because what was being proposed came from a Republican, they automatically rejected it. And what I was telling them was, dude, I have no interest otherwise than my care and concern for the education of Black boys and Black girls becoming
Right.
Black men and Black women. I went to Johns Hopkins, so I
Right.
didn't go to an HBCU, but the fact that I'm fighting more for your school than you are should tell you something.
Right.
And they never, it was always a struggle, and I never understood that. But one of the things, working with South Carolina State, working with HBCUs in North Carolina, in Tennessee, in other areas of the South, some certainly in the Midwest and the North, where there may be fewer but still no less important, it was always stunning to me the lack of support from their own alum. They
You
just
got to have it.
graduated and moved on. I'm like, how the hell do you do that? How do you, I mean, the importance of HBCUs in this country. You know that if the majority institutions had their way, they snuff them out. They don't want to fund them. I mean, I can
There,
tell you the battle we had when we put infrastructure dollars in and rebuilt the campuses of Coppin and Morgan State University. And then I proposed that we now allocate millions of dollars to research and development and funding professorial chairs. The pushback was stunning. You would have thought that I was asking them to take every dollar they could that I could from mainstream institutions. So what is it
I think
about that?
I think I think the institutions have to do a better job of making sure the undergraduate experience is holistic, and that same customer service piece I spoke to at the grocery store or as mayor is applied for your freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors. I also think that you have to cultivate the whole notion of what's called pre-alumni prior to them ever walking across the stage, so they know the first time they're asked to give shouldn't be the day they
When they
graduate.
graduate. Right, it's true. Fair
That's
point.
relationship. That's relationship and cultivation. The point is, I don't want to point fingers at anybody. I believe everybody can do a better job. I believe governors and legislators can give more money to our state HBCUs. I believe for our UNCF schools that alumni and alumni can do more to support their institutions again. Michael, I'm not saying break the bank. You just
Right.
need to, the institution just need to be able to show that this percentage of alumni give. That's
That's
it.
it. That's it.
It can be
That's it.
1 cent.
That
Okay.
no, that's very true, and I think it's an important thing to emphasize for those member of alum who are alum of HBCUs to note that if you're not giving, no one's asking you to give $100,000 a year. If you took $100 check and wrote it once, that's giving once a year, and you add that up over the graduates of that institution. Just let's say the last 10 classes, that
Right.
would have a profound impact on their ability to go into the public sector and say to the because you know how white folks think about us. And let's just break this stuff down. The first question is, I mean, the bars that they don't ask white institutions, well, how many of your people give to your school?
Nope.
They don't ask that question.
Nope.
That's not a question that any donor, any corporate donor is going to ask them.
Right.
May ask about your research department. They may ask about your federal government contracts, et cetera, and stuff like that. They don't ask you, well, how many of your graduates are giving to you? That's the first question you get out of an HBCU. It's like, okay, so how many of your own giving to you?
Right.
All right, so let's take that one off the table so that we can get into more fundamental discussions about how you as corporate America can partner with the future folks out there and be able to move the needle for these institutions.
Well, I'll tell you this. My daughter is 5 months. Her name is Love, Love. And the same week she was born, if not the next day, I started giving Spelman College $18.81 a month. Auto draft. I don't even think about it. Do you know I get a thank you email once a month from them?
Yeah.
So the cultivation has to be there, not just from the institution. But when you have an institution like that that takes giving seriously and engages those who give, it's just so much easier, man.
It is. Mayor, I know you've got another thing to get to. I could chat with you for a lot longer than this, my friend.
Just bring me back. Bring me
I am
back, my friend. Bring me
absolutely,
back.
I am blown away impressed. I love your calm, which
Thank you.
is really cool for mayor because
Yes, sir.
you gotta be calm. But it's been a real treat to get to know you a little bit and to talk to you about your journey, to share that with my podcast family. The book again, folks, it's out now. It's a son of Birmingham. Randall Woodfin, the mayor of Birmingham, tells that story, his story. I encourage you to pick up a copy. Mayor, thank you so much for
Thank you.
spending time with us.
Really appreciate you, Michael.
Absolutely. So, folks, that does it for this time together. Really appreciate you when you do the download thing. You know that. Certainly do a like here and there. That always goes a long way for us. Embrace us here on this Bulwark platform. We really appreciate the Bulwark for that opportunity. Until next time, hold on, gird yourselves, because stupid is running the country. Well, when you let stupid people do stupid things, we need to step up. It's time for us to step up. You just can't sit back and go, oh, someone else is going to handle it. The mayor's a good example of the kind of leaders out there that are saying, no, we got this. We got to take care of our own. So until next time, do that work. All right. See ya.